Is this thing broken? Yeah, no. Okay. Everything seems okay. Having some microphone issues, but we shall see how this goes. Hello, my name is Noi, and guess what? I still have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just fumbling around, hoping I won't fall on my face, and all I can do is hope that the more often I do these things, the easier it will get. Anywho, there might be, how should I put this? A certain pattern may show up with this, and you may wonder, how could a pattern show up, seeing that I've only done 2 videos? I'll have to find out how that works. Today, I will be reviewing a story about a Roomba and its magical journey on the path to become the next Demon Lord, bound to destroy the world. Nice. Not quite like that, but this is All the Dust That Falls, written by Zypher and is narrated by Phil Thron. This is billed as an isekai lit RPG adventure. Last time I covered basically what an isekai is, which is a character being sent from one world to another. Pretty simple. And now we get to go into what this whole lit RPG thing is. Basically, in the case of most lit RPG stories, it's usually a world where game mechanics are baked into everything in and of itself. This means that people in these kinds of stories have stats, skills, levels, and other things, just basically game-like stuff. Now, this isn't just for the sake of the reader or listener in this case. The actual characters in the world are oftentimes aware that they have like these levels and things. So Jim the Baker knows he is level 3 at baking and really probably wants to grind his levels up so he can bake some better things. Times are hard, so he can't. One thing that often comes about in these stories is that if you're unlucky, you'll end up with a giant paragraph or even entire chapters dedicated to recapping stats and level gains. This is somewhat popular, and I've heard that it's enjoyed by some hardcore lit RPG fans, but for a casual fan, or for somebody who doesn't know anything about lit RPGs, it can be a little bit overwhelming and jarring. For me personally, stat-heavy lit RPG stories feel like they're kind of padding out the work with a bunch of meaningless and oftentimes repetitive information. Thankfully, I would say that this particular story is light enough on the stat front that even people unfamiliar with the genre should have a decent experience with it. Levels and stats and all of that are mentioned, but while they are a valid mechanic for the characters, it doesn't overshadow or distract from the story. In fact, I personally feel that this is one of the better examples of the whole lit RPG thing. It's a good starting point for people new to the subgenre. It's also a pretty good story for anyone who doesn't mind misunderstandings and enjoys just some good old goofy weirdness. I did mention that this is a isekai. Normally, as I said before, this is like a young man getting sent from one world to another, usually granted vast cosmic powers and all that kind of stuff. In this particular incident, though, it's a bunch of mages who accidentally summon a Roomba instead of an archdemon. The main character of the story is a Roomba. It's not a Roomba that was once a person. It's not a Roomba possessed by some ancient hero's soul or even the soul of a normal person. It's just a Roomba. with Roomba-like goals and priorities. In the process of being summoned, however, the Roomba did gain sapience, so at the start of this, it is the thinking character pretty much. I would say, thinking back on it, that even though it's obsessed with cleaning, it has puppy-like energy. Not puppy-like in its appearance, but in behavior. It wants all of the pats. If you're... I would say that means that if you're into characters making optimal choices, you're not going to get that here. If the main character was given a skill for, let's say, space lasers or teleportation or a squeegee, you better believe that this little guy is going for the squeegee. The squeegee can clean things. How are you going to clean something with space lasers? That's just silly. Now, before I get too far, I should point out again, this is the first book in a series. Much like last time, there are 2 books that are currently out, I believe. At least to the best of my knowledge. I do think that there is a 3rd one soon to come out, but I'll see about looking into that. I might put that up on screen or something if there is. I should also point out that I'm likely going to be a little bit more spoilery with this one. I do think that this story is good enough that so long as the premise doesn't seem too weird to you, it would probably be a relatively safe investment into just getting this and giving it a good listen. Now, if you don't mind spoilers, I guess we'll just move on from here. First off, upon being summoned by the mages, the main character, it ends up doing what Roombas do. It sucks up all of the little salt and the salt and powders that the mages put down to keep demons in check, which to them makes them feel that this thing is even more powerful than the archdemon, because they were prepared to summon an archdemon, so they had all of the proper, spells and circles and stuff in place. But this thing just eats right through it. So they all freak out and panic, and everyone abandons the castle, fleeing for their lives. The majority of the story takes place within this castle. And while the main character mostly is just finding new ways to clean things and accidentally gaining magic powers, they may accidentally start a cult thanks to a slightly delusional mage apprentice that thinks that she's just sold her soul to some ancient, unknowable entity that is said Roomba. He will end up, by this I mean the main character, he will end up fighting demons, adventurers, undead, and stairs, though stairs, he can't beat stairs yet. Honestly, this weird little story, I've listened to it a few times, and one thing I have to say is that while the story is cute and humorous, it could so easily go into a dark direction. It doesn't do that, mind you. Everything is still fairly lighthearted and stuff, but there are so many things. For instance, when his human friend gets hurt, he starts trying to figure out how to get spare parts for them. He's a machine. He thinks of things in terms of mechanics, spare parts, and charging. He does this in a kind of cute way, but at one point, after they catch or rescue or find, kind of complicated, after they get their hands on this adventurer, he briefly contemplates using them for spare parts. Now, the story, it sounds like it's kind of dark, and somehow the story somehow makes it not. It comes off as funny, like, haha, Roomba thinks the human can be fixed like machines. Just put them in a repair shop. Instead of the actual, oh no, The only thing stopping him from chopping this person into pieces is that he thinks the human is defective, and he doesn't want to give his human defective parts. Yeah, you can see how that could come off as being dark. Again, it doesn't seem that way in the story, but it's kind of hard to even describe without it coming across like that. He honestly thinks that pretty much every human that's coming from the outside is a bit weird or bad or filthy just because of how much dirt is out there. Which brings up another thing. He wants to clean, of course, he's a little Roomba. And eventually he learns that the outside has dirt like everywhere. Freaks him out a little bit. But while the story doesn't go in this direction, my first thought was, oh no, he's gonna try to clean up all the dirt outside and basically just end up eventually sucking up the entire planet, like when he gets stronger or something. After finishing the story, I don't really think that it's going to go in that direction, but he may end up destroying the world in a completely different way. While he's cleaning the castle that had a bunch of mages, the castle that was filled with mages who had summoned demons and were keeping them in check by dust circles, he ends up releasing a whole bunch of them, including a legendary demon and even an undead army. When when people eventually get around to trying to retake the castle, the army that they bring back with them gets attacked by the undead, which in this world, undead are kind of sworn enemies of demons. So from the perspective of people other than his culty, priestess, mage friend, from the perspective of everyone else, he is a demon so powerful that he can break through archdemon seals and can even control undead, which should be his natural enemy. So they are all sorts of freaking out, thinking it's going to be the end of the world and everything. It's kind of funny, because he can't even read. Like, for the most part through the story, he's getting like level ups and all this stuff, but he doesn't know it because he can't read. All he sees are like squiggles when he gets experience and stuff. Like, he doesn't know what letters are. He's just obsessed with smooth floors and fancy rugs. Again, he's kind of like a puppy, just a really neat freak kind of puppy, which sounds anti-puppy, but he's kind of cute. Now, the narration does... because the narrator is a little bit on the older side, so a lot of the whole puppy-like nature that I'm speaking of, it's there. I could see it if I was reading it, but in the narration, a lot of it is lost. It's there, it just isn't as strong as it could be. This is because, well, again, because the narrator's a little bit on the older side, but it's also because, unlike in the previous audiobook and most, modern audiobooks, the voice actor, the narrator, is less of a voice actor and more of a pure narrator. In the previous book, like, that narrator would have, like, if he was voicing a Scottish pirate, would have tried to do a Scottish pirate accent or something close. Whereas Phil Thrawn, he isn't going to do that. His narration is more on the classic side of things. It's still engaging and it's compelling and stuff. It just doesn't have, like, the cast of characters isn't carried by impressions, it's carried by his own, like, soul performance. Again, I likely won't have much more to say about this because, again, I'll only really have a lot to say if it was bad narration, which this isn't. Anywho, moving on. I guess this is where I should do the weird rating thing like I did last time. I suppose I would give All the Dust That Falls an 8 out of 10. It may seem like a silly premise, but it is honestly endearing in my opinion. I definitely would recommend the story the story to people, as long as the concept itself doesn't throw you off. I think it should be a fun little, just a fun little adventure to go on. Now, as that's just about everything, in case anyone ever sees this, they may wonder if I've gotten any better at the whole ending the video thing. The answer may surprise you. Nope.